Today on Family Friday, we're talking about Satan. Or Santa.
What?
Wait, which one are we talking about?
Okay. Let's get into that. Hey everybody, I'm Nathan Warnock.
I'm Andrea Warnock.
And this is Family Friday. This is a show that we do on Marriage by Design that we put out every Thursday where we talk about God's design for the family unit, God's design for parenting, and how we can do that well to His glory.
Right, so today we're going to have a quick discussion about Satan.
No, we're not talking about Satan.
Oh, it's Santa. It's the same
See,
letters,
it's funny because it's the same letters.
No, we're talking about
calm down.
Santa. It's a great time of the year to talk about a few things in regards to Santa and kind of recapping where we land, because we talked about that last year in an episode that Nathan's going to link to somewhere.
Yeah. It's over here in the
where
corner.
that goes. Just talking a little bit about what we discussed last year, and then some conversation that we had with our kids.
Yeah, so our hope for the episode today, last year, and you'll see as we kind of recap this in 4 or 5 minutes here in just a second, is a discussion of, is there a place in the Christian home for Santa? And I believe that there is. Andrea's definitely less in that camp than I am, but we decided with our kids that we were going to walk what is a fine line with our kids with regards to Santa that we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah, and this actually comes in with going to a marriage topic, submission. Santa is not a sin issue. So, right. Doing the Santa thing or not doing the Santa thing is not a sin issue.
Right.
I'm from the camp of, I would prefer to just not do the Santa thing at all. Not try to pretend that he's real. That's how I grew up. We never thought that he was real because our parents always told us that he wasn't. But right. We would do the Santa pictures and all that. It's just kind of a part of the Christmas time.
Sure.
So we didn't see him as Satan, but we never believed that he was real, and that's how I wanted to raise my kids. And Nathan felt very differently, and I just decided, I'm gonna take Nathan's lead on that, and that's okay. Yeah. Again, it's not a sin issue, and submit to his authority, and I go along with it.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, if you're listening to this and you think that it is a sin issue with regards to having Santa in the Christian home, I'd love to read that comment. Mm-hmm. So, you can put a comment down below if you're listening on YouTube, or put a comment over on our Facebook page.
Sure.
That'd be great, too, because I would love to know if there are people that, and I'm sure there are people out there, that think that the whole Santa charade that we do around Christmas is evil.
Yeah,
right? I've heard the Santa and Satan, same letters mixed, blah blah. I've heard all of that. So I mean, if that's the kind of the camp you're in, I'd love you to make that case biblically to me, because I'm interested in hearing it. For us, the way that we talked about this as a couple, and sorry, let me finish my thought before I get into that. That's okay. So we're going to talk about that. Then what I want to do, really, the purpose of this video, is to talk about some potential pitfalls with regards to Santa that I do think it's important this time of year for us to address as parents.
Yeah.
Because Santa is not all fun and games when you think about it through the mind of a child. And so we kind of did a little drill with our kids, and I wanted to share that a little bit with you guys and see if maybe there's a place for this conversation with your kids in the next couple weeks leading up to Christmas.
Yep.
Okay, so Andrea kind of let the meow cat out of the bag with regards to our conversation with regards to Santa. I grew up in a home that definitely celebrated Santa, and did the whole, down to the milk and cookies and the bells.
Oh yes. Right.
They'd when right before they'd go to bed, they'd ring these huge sleigh bells that my parents had.
Who they? Santa
and Rudolph
Santa went to bed?
Would ring these big sleigh bells, and I think there was some ho-ho-hoing involved from time to time. It was the full deal. Right. And look, it's in the modern America from the get-go, right? From the time you get to be 7, 8, 9, there's about, the thing I find interesting about Santa is it's not like the tooth fairy to me. Like, a lot of kids with the tooth fairy, it's like, I believe in the tooth fairy, and then all of a sudden I just don't. That's just the end of it. I don't. With Santa, it always seems like there's this gradual
coming of age, realization.
Right. And we've got a child going through that now. That's great. This was my most important thing with regards to Santa for me personally. I never want to lie to my children. So the tricky tightrope that we have to walk with our kids with regards to Santa is, how do we go along with the fun without lying to them? And kind of the best way that we've found to do that is the Socratic Method, right? Which I love, because the whole purpose of Socrates and the Socratic Method back in ancient Greece was that when a student would ask a question, he would respond with a question. The purpose being that the student is essentially teaching themselves as they talk through this problem.
Right, rather than being given the answer, they have to really... The question that they're usually asked back in a Socratic method helps to kind of lead them along.
That's right.
But the student then really has to think of, okay, what's the next step in this question or this process that I'm trying to think through.
That's right. And so with our kids, when they ask questions about Santa or the reindeer, the whole Christmas Eve thing, or any of that, we're super intentional about responding with a question. And we've been doing this, Jackson's 11, and we've been doing this with him for years. And it helps our kids to think critically about something like Santa Claus and where they fall in that and what do they believe about that. And I hope it's instilling in them values that lead on to other things, right? Because our kids will reach a time in their lives when someone's going to say something like, well, I don't think God is real. And hopefully I've instilled with them the skills to be able, we have instilled in them the skills to be able to ask questions and think through that in a critical way. So that's how we handle Santa Claus around Christmas time.
Right.
And with each of our kids, we've been very specific with them that, you figure it out for yourself and not figure it out for any of your other siblings.
Sure.
And so for the most part, I think that's been pretty good. And for me, it still keeps it fun, right? And I think that was... I love your parents, of course, but that was, I think, the thing I struggled with the way they handled that. Is it's like, it didn't mean you didn't do the Santa Claus thing. There just wasn't any magic or fun around it.
And I never missed out. I never felt like I missed out on that.
Sure, yeah. But having done it the other way, I really feel like I would have missed out had that been the case. And so, anyway, I appreciated you letting me take the lead on that. So that's how we handle that. So then what's the purpose of this video if we already talked about that? Well, the purpose of this video is to talk about some potential pitfalls with regards to Santa. And I think you'll understand as we talk through this drill, but the purpose behind this drill is to help our kids think about what are the attributes, the characteristics, the persona of Santa Claus, and making a list of those things. And then as the parent, sitting back and talking through those and asking if these characteristics remind your kids of anyone else, and then going from there. So let's talk through how this works, and then hopefully you'll understand. So what we started with was just a blank sheet of paper, a note on your phone or whatever, and sitting down with your kids around the dinner table or around the living room, around the Christmas tree maybe, and just saying, kids, why don't you guys tell me a little bit about this Santa Claus that we talk about a lot around Christmas times? What are the characteristics? And for our family, we've got, in case you're just having to come across this video, we've got an 11-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old.
Almost 2, yeah.
Almost 2. And so we went around and gave each of them a turn, except the 2-year-old who's busy stuffing his face. But the other 3, we gave them each a turn to share something. And we got everything from he has a beard, he's really fat, he wears red clothes, he eats too many cookies. And then they started thinking through Christmas songs. And, things like he has reindeer, he rides in a sled,
Lives at the North
he
Pole.
lives at the North Pole. But then they hit on a really important one, which is that, he sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, so be good for goodness sake. And so we teased that a little bit as parents, as far as asking, well, what does that mean? And the kid, because one of the characteristics earlier that Jackson said was he's human.
Well, right, yeah, because Nathan was asking, is he an ogre?
Right.
What is he? Well, he's human.
Right. And I said, okay, well, let's revisit that in a little bit. And so then we get to the sees you when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake, knows if you've been bad or good. And I said, well, you said he was a human. Do you know if everyone around the world has been bad or good? Right. Can you see them when they're sleeping or when they're awake? Well, no.
Are you able to visit everybody?
Right. Are you able to go to every house in the world in one night? Well, no. Well, then is Santa a human? And I think they kind of talked about that for a little bit and kind of reached the conclusion that, well, he must not be. And in fact, if you, nerd alert, if you know the story of Santa Claus, he's in fact not human, right? He's an elf, right? That's how the story goes. Like the king of all elves. It's why all the elves work at the North Pole. He even lore-wise with regards to Santa isn't human. But based on loosely based on the human story of St. Nicholas, which is a fascinating story. So Google that and talk to your kids about that too. But anyway, they kind of came to the conclusion that, well, yeah, I mean, he looks human, but he must not be human. And then to fully set up what I wanted to really talk to the kids about, I asked Riker, our youngest, well, what happens with Santa if you're a good boy during the year? And what did he say?
You get presents.
Right. And I said, well, but what happens if you're a bad boy during the year? And they kind of, because he said, well, you don't get presents.
Right.
And Ryan said,
no.
Well, no, you don't not get presents, you get coal.
Right.
And so we talked a little bit about what coal is and that whole idea. And so then what I wanted to ask them, and this is key as we talk to our kids about Santa versus God, I asked them, so does Santa love you no matter what? And of course the answer to that has to be no. Because Santa's love, which is expressed in the way of giving gifts, which is a love, it's one of the 5 love languages. Right. So his love language of expressing gifts, his way of expressing his love language of giving gifts to children is dependent upon their behavior.
Like always dependent.
Right. If they don't perform, then they don't get the presents. See, this is a real pitfall with regards to Santa Claus that I want to warn you as parents about if Santa has a role in your home. Because for young children, Santa shares a lot of characteristics with
Jesus,
with
Lord.
God. Right. And so it's easy for our kids to start melding the two together. And if you think that that's ridiculous, go back and look at the Constantine Empire. Go back and look at a lot of missionaries that went to tribes in South America and tribes in Asia. There are tons of stories where the reality of Jesus and God was professed, and rather than being adopted, it was melded into the current outstanding religions of the age.
Yeah.
And those were by adults. Right,
and then it becomes really murky.
Right, for kids, they learn all year in Sunday school, well, God can see you when you are disobedient and you need to apologize to God, you can talk to God in prayer anytime because God's always present, which is of course true about God. But who else do we say that about this time of year?
Yeah, we also say Santa is watching all the time.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake, right? He knows if you've been bad or good. Does God know when we've been bad or good? Yeah, of course he does. Should we then be good for goodness sake? Of course we should be. But here's the problem, is then kids get to the point of, so does God only love me or give me blessings if I'm good? And that's where Santa and God are complete opposites. Right? Santa's provision to our children, using quotations with that, is completely dependent upon their behavior. Right? And you might be going, well, Santa's a fictional character. Well, yeah, that's right. But again, we're talking about young children who might not... Even if you've told your children Santa isn't real, they may look at the world around them and Santa everywhere and see Santa in the mall and all that and go, how sad that mom and dad don't believe in Santa anymore. Right? I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So the point is that Satan, now I did it. Santa's provision in their lives is dependent upon their behavior.
Right.
But praise the Lord that his provision in our lives, the provision of salvation, the provision of blessing, the promise in Jeremiah that God has a plan for us, and it's a plan to give us hope and a future, those plans are not dependent upon our performance, period.
There are definitely blessings for obedience. But
that's not what I'm talking about. His provision for eternity, right? For our
exactly
eternal salvation is not dependent upon our how we act.
Yep.
But yes, 100% you're right. Obedience or rebellion against God is going to have consequences, particularly for those of us that profess faith in Him, and that's really important thing to understand. But you can trip over every stump from now until the day you die. And if you've given your life over to the Lord, believe in your heart that He's Lord and confess with your mouth, then God's made eternal provision for you, regardless of whether you've been naughty or nice.
Yeah, and the big difference that I want to teach my kids about Santa one of the big differences versus the Lord is with Santa, people think, I want to be good to get something. With the Lord, my hope is that we teach our kids, I want to be obedient to the Lord because He's worthy. He is good, and His plan for my life is good for me.
Yeah.
And I, out of love, I want to be obedient out of love, not because of what I can maybe get or not, or don't get if I'm disobedient.
That's right. So once you have that list of characteristics about Santa, just to recap, it's important then to ask your kids, okay, let me go back over some of these. He can see you when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake. All of the things that cross over with the Lord, omnipresent, right? All present. Santa kind of has this all-present feel to him.
Lives in a place that that no one
can
see, we can't visit.
That's right. All those things. Then say, does this remind you of anyone? And I'm guessing your kids will say, well, man, it reminds me of God. And then you can say, yeah, there's a lot of characteristics that are assigned to Santa that are characteristics we can see in God. But there's a major difference. And that allows you to launch into that conversation of performance-based faith. So many religions around the world, your right standing before God is dependent upon your performance. Mm-hmm. That is markedly not the case with our God. And praise the Lord that it's not, because there wouldn't be a prayer in the world for me if it were. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. A little bit shorter video today, but wanted to just equip you with maybe a tool, a conversation that you could have with your kids over the next couple of weeks as we lead up to Christmas. And again, if you have questions about Santa in general, or how we handle Santa here at our home, please feel free to put those in the comments below. Flip over to our Facebook page. That's the Marriage by Design podcast. There will be a specific post associated with this podcast, you can just comment right below that, and we will get back to you. We always respond to those that comment.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Have a Merry Christmas. Hopefully you're enjoying the Christmas season.
Yeah. Kids are about to be out of school, then it's real.
I know, I love it.
That's great. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. And remember, God is for your family. Have a good one.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Marriage by Design. If you were impacted by this video, like it by hitting the thumbs up below. Also, don't forget to subscribe, and once you subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can be notified when new episodes release.
Excellent. Also, one of the huge pillars of our show is interactivity between us and you. So we would love you to comment down in the comments below if you have thoughts about this video, or if you have questions or other things you'd like to see considered in the future. In addition, if you'd like, you can email us. That's marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram @marriagebydesignpodcast, or you can find us on Facebook by searching Marriage by Design Podcast. Finally, if you want to, you can tweet at us. We do have a Twitter account that is @MarriageXDesign. Thanks, and have a great day.